Welcome back to an episode of the Entry for One podcast. As always, I'm your host, Josue Hernandez. And on this week's episode, we're going to be reviewing and discussing Overlord, directed by Julius Avery. On this week's episode, we're joined by Chandler.
Hey, what's going on?
Overlord opened up this past week, November 9th, directed by Julius Avery, who's done movies like Son of a Gun and Jerry Cam. I don't think I've ever maybe watched either one of those two movies, so he's fairly new, I think, into the movie world other than his independent work. It was produced by J.J. Abrams' production company, Bad Robot, which was kind of cool. Overlord was their first rated R film, so other than kind of like the Cloverfield universe movies, this is one of their branched off movies that they've kind of decided to take on. Bad Robot announced that they're planning on doing 6 movies that won't be related to any Cloverfield storylines, so that's kind of fresh. And one of those movies is going to actually be done by Logic, the rapper. He's going to be co-writing and starring in one of them. It's called Everything Must Go, and it's supposedly Clerks for a New Generation.
Isn't there a Will Ferrell movie called Everything Must Go?
Maybe?
I think that's immediately what I thought of. Yeah, there was a Will Ferrell movie called Everything Must Go that came out in 2010.
2010.
Yeah, it's about an alcoholic that loses his job for showing up drunk.
Will Ferrell is such an interesting actor. Like, I don't know, like, obviously he's been primarily like comedic movies. I feel like he has so much range behind him, though. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's got as much range as like Steve, but who knows?
Or like maybe like Adam Sandler, I guess.
I don't know that Adam Sandler has range. Have you seen Spanglish? It's not.
I watched it years ago. I was so young when I watched it. What I do remember him being in, it's probably one of the more sadder movies I think I've ever seen. I've seen it, and let alone with Adam Sandler in it, but it's called no, not Click. Although Click has a very weird ending to it. It's called Reign Over Me. It's pretty interesting. It's kind of deals with like a homeless guy being Adam Sandler, and then he runs into Don Cheadle's character, which is more of a actually I'll read it here. It says Charlie Feynman, who lost his family in a terrorist attack on September 11th, still grieves over their deaths. He runs into his former college roommate Alan Johnson, and the two rekindle their friendship.
I feel like Steve Carell has been proving that he's got like a pretty strong range. He's coming out with Beautiful Boy.
Speaking of Beautiful Boy, I actually watched it last night with my father.
So is the kid still autistic? Because I read the book when I was in like 6th grade, and the kid that's Nick, or I think his name's Nick. He's supposed to be autistic, but it doesn't show that at all in the trailer. So I don't know.
He definitely was not established as an autistic character, nor did they talk about it.
That's really strange, because the real life character and in the book he's supposed to be autistic.
I guess it got carried over to the new Predator movie.
But it's a true story. That's why it's so.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure. I never read the book. So yeah, I wasn't even aware his character was supposed to be autistic, other than dealing with the drug addiction and alcoholism as well. But I'll give a quick review on it. I wish I liked it more than I thought I was going to. The trailer made it seem like you were obviously going to have it was going to be one of those tearjerker movies, and you're going to be crying at some point during the movie. But the way these characters were kind of written, it made it very hard to feel any type of way for these characters. The drug addiction aspect of it was it was too clean of a movie, I think. I don't think it ended up working as they wanted to. And you could really see where they wanted to go with the movie. But I think it kind of just missed the mark. The performances by Timothy Chalamet and Steve Carell are pretty solid. I'm kind of iffy though with that. But yeah, I thought I was gonna like it more than I thought. I just thought I was gonna like it more. It was 2 hours long, and it felt much longer than that. I know a lot of people that are just kind of fans of Timothy Chalamet now are, very attached to his character, and they probably really like the movie. But I don't know. I just thought I was gonna like it more than what I ended up liking it as. Have you watched any movies recently?
I mean, other than Overlord, not really.
Okay. Yeah, I've been meaning to watch more movies. Just with school, and I get caught up, and now with Fallout, it's kind of taking up my my movie watching time. But yeah, that's gonna be cool for the Bad Robot production company. How do you feel about the Cloverfield movies? Were you ever a fan of them, or do you look forward to when
um,
they announce
I
something new?
I honestly don't remember like at all. It's been so long since I watched the first Cloverfield movie, and I don't
Yeah,
think I watched the other ones.
I remember watching the first one in theaters, and then, oh, I obviously remember watching the one after that. But the Cloverfield franchise gets such, a lot of negative reputation. And I mean, with
Mm.
Steadicam movies, it's very hit or miss. It can work or completely just bomb, kind of like the Paranormal Activity movies that we've gotten so many of now. I don't know. I guess there's something about sci-fi movies, particularly ones that kind of centralize them around real events and that aren't kind of focused on more, future, unreal kind of characteristics to them. Whereas, something that's focused on like New York or something, kind of, it's in the same time frame as what you're currently in, kind of makes it feel more real, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I get kind of excited when I hear about a new Cloverfield movie. I guess the whole world building is kind of cool to me, although Cloverfield Paradox really did not work out. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think that
I
probably
might
has
have
to,
to.
yeah.
There
And I,
was supposed to be one that was released this year. I read, but it kept getting delayed. Kind of a side note. I don't know why I thought that the book said he was autistic, beautiful boy, but I guess it doesn't. So now I feel really bad that I like totally got that wrong.
all
What
right
did I
then.
read? So that was
um,
totally off. I need to
maybe
go see, you know,
I'm not sure what movie.
because I read that book when it came out in 2008. So that's probably why I got that wrong. But my mom had made me read so many books back then that it's like they all get blurred.
he maybe got it
But
mixed up with oh, I don't know. I'm not
I have
sure.
no idea.
um, yeah, definitely. I mean, it touched on his drug addiction, and then slightly some of his addiction to alcohol as well. But it was so weirdly edited. It did a lot of back and forth. Like it would cut to a flashback scene, and then right after it would go into a future, present time scene, and then it would go back into um a flashback, and it was just kind of all over the place. It was disorienting and kind of hard to follow as the movie progressed. It
Hmm.
also did this weird thing with music. There was this one scene or sequence that it had like this horror almost style music to it, and it kind of got stretched for like almost 5 minutes. It felt like, and it just felt so exhausting. Like it just kept going and going. And what they tried to do with the music was it just did not work at all. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, sadly, I think this movie kind of missed the mark and kind of showing Steve Carell's character's pain, and then kind of just glossing it over with Timothy's character. I don't know. It definitely missed the mark for me, and it did not really work out.
I might
But
just watch it for Steve Carell.
Steve Carell's character is so weird. Like just him as an actor, him getting serious, I just can't buy it. I really cannot
Oh,
buy
really?
Steve character's character screaming or getting angry. It just does not translate
Without like
well.
thinking of Michael Scott.
Yeah, yeah, like it literally his signature scream that you get from The Office. That's exactly
uh,
what you get in this movie,
oh no.
and it's just very hard. Like that video that everyone's seen of him saying screaming no, no, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're gonna get in this movie.
Oh man.
And I really liked him in Foxcatcher, but it was a very different type of character. But
Mm.
I don't know. It's very hard for it to kind of for him to sell you on his anger. And then Timothy's character, I mean, he's a pretty good actor. He's not pretty good. He's a really good actor, especially for what his age is, and now obviously known as a Oscar-nominated actor. But
Mm.
yeah, I wish I would have liked him more than I did.
The actors in Overlord, I feel like are pretty not well known.
Yeah, so it stars Javon Adepo as Boyce, Wyatt Russell as Ford, Mathilde Oliver as Chloe, Palou as Beck. I'ma assume that's how you pronounce his last name, as Wafner. um, John Majera as Tibet, Ian Castecker as Chase, Jacob Anderson as Dawson, and Dominic Applewhite as Rosenfield. Yeah, this movie did have a lot of actors that we've might have not been used to seeing on the big screen. I mean, I guess the more popular ones would be Giovanna Depo, who was in Fences, and it says he was in Mother. I
Oh,
don't.
he was in Fences. That's probably why I recognize him.
Yeah, he
I
was the
didn't watch
son that
Mother,
was
but I
in
watched
the.
Fences.
He was in the Marines, I believe.
Okay, that makes
He
sense.
was in Mother. I might remember a scene where he might have been in towards the end, where it starts getting very crazy. And then White
Mm.
Russell, he was in Everybody Wants Some and 22 Jump Street. But he's
It's Kurt
also,
Russell's kid.
yeah, which,
Figured that out.
yeah, I didn't even know he had a kid. But yeah, he looks like him now that I think about it.
Yeah, he does.
But yeah, I mean, I think actually, let's see. Actually, we'll get into the review here. Actually, just kind of guys talked about the characters and stuff, but quickly talking about the box office, it had a budget of 38 million, which isn't obviously a big budget. Um, but it opened at 10 million, so it didn't have the biggest opening. But right now, currently at worldwide, it's at 24 million. So I think it should make its budget and maybe get some profit on top of that as well. It opened
Hopefully.
along The Grinch and The Girl in the Spider's Web, so I don't think it had that big of a competition. I mean, I guess maybe The Grinch, it being a child's animated film, but not the biggest opening kind of schedule for movies. But yeah, well, I guess we'll get right into the review portion. What'd you think about Overlord?
I enjoyed it. I wish I hadn't gone in seeing any of the trailers or anything like that. I think there was that one screen grab they like to show everybody with the character with his face kind of blown off and smiling. Uh, I mean that screen grab definitely got me excited because I really like practical effects, but it's probably a movie better to go in blind. At certain points, it kind of feels like you're watching two separate movies. Not that it's a bad thing. Both sections are equally interesting and exciting. Um, I would definitely recommend this film, especially if you're really into any sort of war film. People have been describing it as like a more gory, like a campy gory sort of Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but it's definitely got a lot of its moments where it comes into like really iconic war scenes, and then the horror aspect is interesting. I'd describe it more as a thriller than a horror, but definitely check it out if you're into either one of those subgenres.
Yeah, I'd say I really I like this movie. It has a nice blend of action, drama. Like you said, it's some people are calling it a horror movie, or even J.J. Abrams sees it as a horror movie as well. But it's definitely more of a thriller. The zombies slash experiments are more of a. They just add more to the thriller aspect of it.
Mhm.
Um,
I
that's
wouldn't even call it a zombie movie, honestly.
yeah,
It,
I
it keeps getting
agree.
described as one, but I disagree with that description wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're definitely the creatures we get in this movie have some characteristics of a zombie, being, but it's
Mm.
it's not entirely like a zombie movie. I think the sound design for this movie was very well done. It does get loud at some moments, and the dialogue kind of gets drowned underneath that. But other than that, I
Mm.
mean, I think it had a great blend of, whether it was, the gun firing or explosions. It just had a really great sound design, I think. And I was very impressed from the very beginning, particularly that first sequence we get. Like you said, it's very nice to see a movie using practical effects versus relying completely on CGI.
Mm.
Um, like the scene you're talking about, where it's kind of become their poster image for the movie, which is one of the characters' mouth being halfway blown off, and that is entirely done with practical effect. And then we also
Mm.
get a lot more gorier scenes in this movie that are also done through practical effect.
Right. And all
Um,
the weapons are actual. They're props. Like whereas you see people with like kind of fake guns and then they put in the bullets, they're actually firing weapons. And there's even a scene that you may see in some screen grabs where one of the characters is holding a flamethrower. That's an actual flamethrower, which is pretty dangerous considering it's just an untrained actor firing this flamethrower. You'd very easily injure yourself, but they decided that they wanted to go for the realism, and it definitely adds to the, I guess, the reaction that you get out of the actor firing it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that as well with the practical effect aspect. It makes it just much more real as far as for the actors when they're trying to interact with someone that's, looking bloody, and rather than looking at someone in a kind of sock, or tracking dots on
Mhm.
their face, it obviously would make it much easier for the actors to interact with that. And also when it translates onto the big screen, you can kind of really see practical effect versus CGI. Obviously, there's really good CGI out there now, but it's something you can really appreciate, and it translates very well onto the screen. And then same thing with the guns. I saw a behind the scenes video, and yeah, those guns were actually firing something out of their guns rather than just having CGI bullet spreads layered on top of the guns.
Mm.
I thought the acting was pretty solid, especially with these newer actors that we got in this film. I mean, most people you can kind of they have their own characteristics and traits, and they all have something to add to the storyline and contribute to the kind of squadron we get throughout this movie. It's a fun movie. I don't think it's meant to be taken as serious as some people are taking it as far as war accuracy. I know
Mm.
you said at one of your screenings you heard one of someone talk about how they had an issue with the guns or the accuracy of
Oh,
something.
yeah. Yeah, there are people complaining the how realistic this film is. There was somebody that was talking about, oh, the weapons aren't realistic. And like, well, they use real weapons, so that's kind of difficult to dispute. But I guess some people, a very small minority, I would say, had an issue with an integrated squad because I guess in World War II, around the time that this would have been, the setting would have been taking place, there would not have been black and white soldiers in the same unit, let alone a black commander. I didn't have a problem with it. I feel like it's stupid to argue that in a movie about undead super soldiers that, oh, black and whites being together. Oh, like it's
Yeah,
such a small stupid detail. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, the whole realism aspect or immersion aspect kind of gets thrown around a lot. I mean, you see that in video games definitely, and I mean that's
Mm,
never been a factor where it kind of sacrifice my enjoyment of whether the game or the movie that I was watching.
right.
Obviously, there might be some stuff that's specifically meant to be a literally copy and
Yeah.
display of what happened on the true story, but something like this here, which is more of a fantasy style action drama. um,
Right.
you
It's
know,
kind of like neckbeards when Battlefield 1. Like they were super angry about that. And I was like, shut up. Like just allow us to put some inclusion in our fictions. Like,
yeah, like I mean, even for example, the new Battlefield game we just got. When the first trailer came out, they had some girls in the trailer. They had
yeah, yeah.
multiple races on the trailer as well, and in the comments you should see people talking about, it's damaging the immersion and the immersion, and
Yeah.
it's like, please. I mean, I doubt it's making that big of an impact on your life. You could
Right.
really probably care less. You're gonna be playing the game,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I don't
yeah,
remember anybody complaining when playing Call of Duty Zombies. You play as an American, a Russian, and a Japanese man all teaming up. So I don't
exactly.
see why they have a problem with this all of a sudden.
Yeah,
Speaking of video games, I've seen a lot of people saying if you like Call of Duty Zombies or Wolfenstein, this is that movie. And I'm like, no, that's not at all an accurate representation of this movie.
I was just gonna ask you like that. I mean, did you obviously you just said how you um kind of thought of it comparing to the Call of Duty Zombies. I mean,
Mm,
it's definitely. I guess we could talk about it more in spoilers, but the setting, actually, the location this movie ultimately takes place in is almost in a single spot,
right.
and I guess in that way you could kind of sort of see it as a mission you could potentially see playing, whereas actually, I didn't even talk about the synopsis, but it's about soldiers on the eve of D-Day, and their mission was to destroy a radio tower that's interfering with the air support for the American soldiers, trying to take down the German soldiers, or in this case, Nazis. And that kind of ends up being the storyline this movie takes place in. Once they go and try to destroy this radio tower, to discover that there's something else occurring in this location with the radio jammers. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of straightforward. The starting point, and then we got to get to this end point and destroy this for our objective. But yeah, like you said, I don't really see it much as or resembling much of a actual Call of Duty Zombies game mode.
Right. And I think like when there's an inclusion of Nazis in any movie or video, comparing it to whatever the more popular version of that is, I've seen people compare the main antagonist in this movie to what was his name? The bad guy in Glorious Bastards, and I don't agree with that comparison at all. The people that are saying that this is a lot like Wolfenstein obviously haven't played Wolfenstein,
Yeah, that's gotta
or
be,
even maybe watched
yeah.
the movie.
That's a very I I guess it's very easy for someone to compare it just on the fact that it's Nazis and then sort of
Right.
kind of people that are acting like zombies. But
You're
yeah, I
right.
mean, Wolfenstein's definitely
A stretch.
different. Yeah, there's definitely no super suits or anything or robots happening in this movie. That's for sure.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I'd recommend it. You definitely can enjoy yourself in this movie. There are some characters, specifically our lead character in this movie, that I kind of had a tough time liking him as a character and not as the actual actor that's giving his performance, because his performance is really good, I think,
Mm,
but his character, I think, was kind of hard for me to like, and I'll talk about that
yeah.
here in the spoilers. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I could definitely recommend this movie. It's definitely a fun time. You could either watch it with your buddies, just if you like any action movies, dramas, and then something that I guess most people are calling it a horror, so I'll call it a horror as well. Um, but don't think of it anything like a Conjuring or Insidious or anything like that.
Right.
Definitely
Right.
not anything. And that's why I have a tough time kind of calling it even a horror movie. But yeah, I really like this movie. Any final words before we get into spoilers?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. I enjoyed all of the characters in this film. I feel like they all have something to offer. It's pretty stereotypical. Their characters, like you've got the stereotypical Italian American that's kind of giving everybody shit, and then there's the super tough CO and things like that. So if you're really into war movies, I would give it a shot, and then it's a bonus if you like horror thriller movies as well.
I will say if you watch the trailer, you might have kind of already seen a lot.
Yeah.
I usually rewatch trailers before we record the podcast, and when we're watching the trailer, I mean, they do show a lot. They show quite a few scenes that are basically a lot of the movie. I usually, when I find a movie that I think I'm gonna go watch in the theaters, I kind of make it a point to where I'm not watching the trailers. So I'm kind of glad I didn't fully watch the Overlord trailer because they did show quite a few stuff. But
Right. If
you'll
you're one of those people that likes to go into a movie after watching the trailer, oh, I saw that in the trailer. Yeah, you'll enjoy it. But otherwise, I would stay away from the trailers.
Yeah, if you still somehow not seen the trailer for this, then I'd recommend not and just go into the movie. But I'm pretty sure most people have either been forced the trailer at the movie theater or they've probably ran into it on YouTube or something. But yeah, go watch this movie. It's pretty good. But yeah, I guess we'll get into spoilers now. The very first sequence I thought was very, very good, actually.
Yeah, it's actually really stressful to watch.
Yeah, it's just so chaotic, and it really does a good job kind of throwing you into the kind of mentality of what these characters are kind of thinking. A lot of these guys have been drafted into the army to fight into this war against the Nazis. Especially our lead actor, he talks about he was sitting at home one day and then he gets this letter and then he's now been
Right.
drafted into the army.
It's a line that he delivers something about, oh, yeah, I was out cutting my grass,
Yeah,
and a man walks up and gives me a letter, and now I'm here.
Yeah, which has to suck. I mean, I couldn't
Right.
imagine, no plan on ever joining the military. At least
Mm,
his character never talks about ever planning on joining the military,
right.
but I couldn't imagine just having your, regular day cutting grass and then it's like, surprise, you're not gonna go
Right.
fight Nazis and maybe not even come back home. But
And he's got a pretty unique story arc as far as his character goes, where he's very reluctant about the war. He doesn't want to kill anybody. They in that scene at the beginning where they're on the plane, John Maguiro's character, he's like a shit talking Italian guy, and he's like, "Oh, he couldn't even kill a fucking mouse." He tells a story about how he lets a mouse go, and then it comes back and shits on the CO's pillow. Uh, he pretty consistently shows throughout the movie that he's not too happy about having to kill anybody, and often tries not to. Um, I think he only makes 2 kills the entire movie. One of them being one of his squad mates that he accidentally brought back to life, and I think the German scientist in charge of the project.
yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think about two. I mean, maybe three. But yeah, that's what I actually kind of had a trouble liking this character. His character was so, like you said, shy of killing anyone, and then also he was a very anxious character, and he was very on alert the entire time. And when while I was watching the movie, it just made me very, I don't know, like
Just frustrated that he wouldn't kill anybody.
yeah, like it's kind of frustrating just because it's like, come on, man, you're gonna have to do it at some point. But
Yeah.
then when I got out of the movie and I thought about, well, this guy had just been drafted. He never planned on joining the war. He never
Mm,
planned on joining the military. And then now he's just been thrown into this world and now he's kind of forced to act a certain way. And then
right.
it kind of redeemed his character for me a bit after that. But yeah, when I was first watching this movie, it was very hard to me to like his character, how he was written into the
I can see
storyline.
that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it was just, yeah, like you said, it was frustrating seeing him being so hesitant and anxious and making these mistakes. And there is actually a point when they finally get to the town and they go into the attic and then German soldiers happen to walk into the same house they're in, and he's kind of in a rush to go fight these characters.
Well, he's trying to protect the female protagonist.
Right.
I, but
Right.
because she's the main antagonist. I don't remember any of their names, to be honest. He is going to rape this woman, so
Right.
he under defying direct orders of his CO goes down and points a gun at the back of his head, and they essentially capture him.
Mm-hmm.
Their names.
But yeah, he I don't know. I mean, when I first watched it, his character just wasn't really connecting with me, I guess. But yeah, like I said, once I kind of incorporated the idea that this guy has just been drafted, it kind of redeemed his character for me. But other than him, I mean, he's primarily the guy we follow throughout the movie. He's our lead actor. But also his squadron teammates. I mean, I think they had nice characteristic to them. That kind of made the group so diverse, and there's some either jokes thrown in or different purposes they kind of fill. Either it's covering fire or being the CEO.
No, I think probably my least favorite character was probably Corporal Ford, Wyatt Russell's character. He's not a bad character, but I feel like he's so stereotypically like, we got to do the mission, like don't sway away from orders. Like he's a hardened war tough guy, and I don't know if Wyatt Russell like convinced me that that's who he was by the end of the film, but it wasn't that he did a bad job. It was just I've seen that character done so many times. And he's got kind of like a soft boy face despite his beard.
Yeah, more of, I mean, maybe he was put into that position and kind of gave me like a big head, I guess. Because we do get that at the beginning of the movie where they're in the plane and one of the soldiers says, "You're gonna listen to this guy. What he tells you, you do." And I guess you could see him more as a cocky leader.
Right. It hints towards him having been in rough battles before, and he's a corporal that they brought in specifically for this mission to help with explosives. He's like their explosive expert. But they're like, oh yeah, I heard he was deployed in Italy or something like that, and then he doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah, and then we get that's the scene where we have the photographer there trying to take pictures, and then he's like, I'd prefer if you went to go sit back or something. It's like, all right.
Yeah, he told him to sit the fuck back down or something. Yeah, and then later he destroys like one of his cameras. Like he's kind of a dick.
Yeah, that's also one of the scenes. Obviously, written in so we can kind of see his tough guy character played more, but having this journalist, when they specifically say, keep your voice down and don't make any sudden moves or anything so we don't get seen. And then we have this guy trying to put a flash on top of his camera. Yeah. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah, the first half of this movie plays so much like just a typical war film. I was for a certain point, I was like, did I see the correct trailers? Like, what am I watching right now? Like, there's the scene at the beginning, which is essentially their plane getting shot down. You see bullets ripping through the bottom of the plane, killing a bunch of soldiers. He reaches the ground, sees his CO like surrounded by Nazis, and I think his CO's name is Dawson, his original CO, and he's like, one of you Nazi fuckers got a light or something like that. And they all just gun him down. So our Private Ed Boyce is forced to watch while his CO is getting gunned down because Corporal Ford won't let him fight back. And he's like, we could have saved him. He's like, are you kidding me? There's like 6 Nazis and I've seen how you handle that rifle. Like they all give him shit for being like a kind of a garbage soldier, but he ends up saving the day eventually.
Yeah. Again, the first sequence is great. I guess the toughest part of this movie for me is the transition from the plane and then the in between before they get to the French city.
Right.
It's kind
How did you feel about the mine scene?
W-
I remember watching and just thinking, oh, this guy, like I could see it coming. It made it so clear that he was going to die. Since
Remind me on the mine scene really quickly.
so they're walking and they're trying to be quiet, and one of the characters is
Oh,
talking
the mine
about
scene. No, yeah.
yeah, he's
I was
talking about a book. He's
his
like,
book.
yeah, I've
Yeah,
been writing everything in my journal so that I can write a book about it.
yeah.
And the guy that's the photographer, after he's given this long speech about how he wants to go home and like will include stories from the other soldiers, the photographer starts to say something like, hey, I could give you some of my pictures. We could collaborate on this book. And then the guy writing the book's like, oh yeah, that'd be, and then it just explodes.
Yeah, I felt bad for the guy. He seems so excited for this book.
But that's how I knew. I was like, he's
Yeah, yeah.
talking about life goals and everything like that.
Yeah, it was bound to happen. No, I definitely saw it as well. I guess it's an easy way to kind of quickly sympathize for a character, telling about his future goals and, maybe not knowing if he's actually going to make it alive or not, and then obviously exploding.
Right. It
Um,
seemed like another scene that they included just to show that Ed is like not at all prepared for what's going on because he's immediately shell shocked after the explosion.
yeah, he was so like dazed and yeah, he was definitely
Mhm.
out of it for a good amount of time, and then they're screaming at him strangely, which was so funny. Especially Wyatt Russell's character. It's so funny that he specifically says keep it down, and he's here screaming at this
Yeah, I
guy.
remember I thought that first too, but then I was like, you know what? They heard. So if anything, like that probably gave away their position anyway. So if anything, yeah, scream at him, tell him where to go because there are probably other mines.
Cause he even screams at the camera guy, and it's like, dude, you just said keep it down. It's like, all right, man.
Right. I like that scene a lot though because right after the mine goes off, he's like, "Stick your rifle in the ground," and he says something like, "Try not to use so much enough pressure to set off a mine." And I think Tibbet's like, "How much pressure is that?" And he's like, "Oh, you'll know." It's like Jesus Christ.
We finally get them at the French scene, and that's when we run into actually we run into Mathilde Oliver's character Chloe a little bit before that, where she's kind of running away, and then you assume at the beginning that she's kind of a German informer, and she's gonna go tattletale on these U.S. soldiers. But then you come to find out that she's just one of the French citizens in the town that's being occupied by the Nazi soldiers, and then she kind of gets attached to the squadron.
Right.
Uh,
They introduce her as sort of like a love interest for Ed Boyce, but they never really. There's no closure to that really. They don't ever kiss or anything like that.
Yeah, they probably wanted to add it, incorporate it, and they maybe just it didn't end up working out, I guess, or something.
Yeah, there's like a hint to it at the end of the film, but it's not very clear.
But in that house, that's where we kind of get first introduced to these. What do you want to call them? You want to call them zombie-like creatures,
Well, so I
or
think let's just call them
treated
mistakes because
treated test subjects, I guess.
yeah, they're test subjects, I suppose. They're essentially trying to create super soldiers, Nazi soldiers that would take a ton of damage, would be able to
1,000-year
do a lot of
soldiers.
damage. Right, 1,000-year soldiers is what they call them, and they're testing on the people living in the village as well as dead Nazis.
And that's where we see Javon's or Boyce's character. He hears the sound, and then he's so curious about it that he revisits the room, and we see the grandmother. Was it the grandmother or an aunt? It was aunt, right?
Mhm.
And it didn't look pretty. I'll say that much.
Yeah, they look like burn victims.
Yeah, there's a specific thing that they look like. Oh man.
I mean, she kind of looked like like Ryan Reynolds Deadpool makeup,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I
like
mean,
worse.
I'll stick with that for now. Um, but do they ever revisit the aunt?
So the Nazis kill her, but it's off screen. There's a scene where Chloe is running away from a Nazi on a motorbike, and a couple of other Nazis go into her house, and you see bullets rip through the window, but you don't actually see her die.
Ah, that's what it was. I thought they were shooting at Chloe.
No, they were killing her aunt.
I see. Well, I guess that makes I guess clears up some stuff. But yeah, I thought they were shooting at
Mm.
Chloe while she was driving away.
No, the guy that was driving on the motorbike that was chasing after her, he instructed them to go inside the house and kill whoever.
Okay. Other than the first sequence that we get at the beginning, which again I really liked, it was really well shot. It was really well. The sound design was awesome. Yeah, it was very immersive. The first sequence. But the second time we really get a big moment of action is when they're starting to kind of flank the entrance to the German Nazi base. And we have two of our characters kind of set up with a sniper rifle and an LMG, and they're just gunning down these Nazi soldiers. And it was pretty cool scene that we got.
That's especially where that was like, okay, now I'm watching two different movies, because you have these two characters. They're trying to kill all of the human Nazis. They're trying to convince them that there's more than two of them by using an LMG and a sniper rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And all while they're holding off or trying to eliminate the human Nazis, the Boyce and Ford are infiltrating the compound.
I mean, I could see it as that, but I mean, just because their specific instructions were to do that, I wouldn't see it as that, but I could see, how that would end up being seen as.
Well, when I say it's like two different movies, it's just because Tibbet and I forget what the other one's name is.
Was it Rosenfield? Let me see.
It might. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, Rosenfeld. They don't ever enter the compound. They're only killing Nazis that are trying to hold the compound and escape from the compound. They don't actually see any of the horrific experiments that are going on. So you get a really tense section of the movie where they're kind of sneaking around and seeing all of these horrible things, and then you get this other section with them just gunning down Nazis the whole time.
Yeah, that in between part I thought was kind of weird. I believe it was I just had it here, Rosenfield's character, and then was it Chase, I believe, that their mission was they went out and kind of investigated this town that was being occupied. Their kind of mission at that point was kind of weird up until they're now shooting at the zombies. I think their mission was to scope out the area, if I'm not wrong.
It was. They end up going into the house because Chloe invites them in. She tells them, "Look, listen, I'm on your side. I hate the Nazis just as much as you do. So you can lay low in my attic until you figure out what you're gonna do with your mission."
For some reason, I'm thinking it was after that, but I might be getting confused. It's the night sequence we get, and I think it's specifically our photographer and Rosenfield.
Well, he sends them out, but they're in the attic, and he's like, "You two go scout out the place while we stay here."
That's what it was. It was after they were in the attic. Yeah.
Right.
And then that kind of just gets brushed over because we just get a scene of them kind of sneaking around, and then they're back already.
Right. In between them sneaking around, you get that scene where they capture the SS captain.
Yeah. And the only reason our characters decide to actually investigate this is because a boy gets abducted.
Right, and Chloe's younger brother.
Yeah, her younger brother gets abducted, and then that's their motivation now to kind of go recover the kid and bring him back home. Because if not, they were just going to explode the tower from the outside. Which, if you think about it, couldn't they have just blown it up from air?
Well, if they had done that, then the Nazis would still have their super serum. I mean, that probably wouldn't have been good for the war.
Sure, but I guess they didn't even know about it yet. But
right, he sends Boyce out. Ford sends Boyce out to go find Tibbet and or Chase. He sends them out. He's like, go find them, bring them back. When he goes out, he ends up getting sidetracked, or he Nazis almost discover him. So he jumps in the back of a truck full of dead bodies that they're using to experiment on, and ends up inside the base where he first discovers all of these horrible things going on. And then when he gets back, Tibbet and Chase have already found their way back, and they give him shit for it. They're like, "You were supposed to look for us," like, and that's where he comes back and he's like, "Look at this shit!" Like I found all of this. He's got a vial of the experimental serum, and he actually brings back what's his name? The other guy.
There's Tibbet, Chase, Rosenfield.
I think it's Dawson. Or no, that's the captain. They bring back another one of the paratroopers that he had made a connection with, Dominic Applewhite's character.
Oh, okay, so Rosenfield.
Right. They bring him back because they had been getting him. They were going to involve him in the process of creating the super serum.
Yeah, I thought before Boyce's character, there's no way they didn't hear these dogs chasing this guy, and then somehow he's still able to get in the back of the truck.
Well, they heard the dogs. You can hear them talking. You're like, what? Well, I don't know.
And
but
then
they're basically like, "What's the dog?" See him anymore? They're like, "You stupid fucking dog."
Like, it's just obviously for the movie, it's got to work, but the way he's able to finesse it so smoothly without it really, I guess, making sense for me. It was just funny to see that. But yeah, he jumps into that truck with all these dead bodies.
I feel like he's the only character that could have pulled that off. I feel like knowing how the other characters are pretty willing to kill, it would have been a totally different story, because he walks throughout this entire compound without alerting or killing anybody.
Yeah, that compound was so strangely unoccupied. I would have thought there might have been more guards throughout the entrances, but he's he gets around so easily, and that I guess I would have liked to see him struggle more to get throughout the base,
right,
or the underground bunker.
I think the action in this movie is really good, though. Considering how much sneaking around there is, it's made up for with the scenes in which they actually start fighting. The guy that was chasing Chloe on the bike, they end up capturing him, forcing him to ride his bike into the compound with tape over his mouth. And when they pull the tape, they realize that there's a pin attached to a grenade that was in his mouth. And his bike is rigged with all types of explosives. And that scene in particular, I remember in the movie theater, like practically cheering. I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome."
I thought it was very clever. It was a very cool scene. I thought they had just strapped him into they had strapped his hands with some rope or something on the handles, and he was just gonna kind of ram into the area.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see the grenade pin taped to some tape, and then once they pulled it, they pulled the pin. But yeah, I thought that was a very clever scene that they kind of pulled off there.
The gore is really good too. Like when you see somebody die, I was telling you before, I feel like I need to watch this because there's so many quick gory scenes that it's like if you blink you miss it, but if you do catch it, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, like you said, the practical effect work is very well done. There's even a scene where, oh man, I believe it's Rosenfield's character, his back completely, like he throws his neck back completely, halfway down his back, and you see the spinal cord kind of go through it, and then it snaps back into place. And from what I've seen, most of that was done through practical effect as well.
Right. Apparently they used puppetry and things like that to get some of the scenes to work, which I thought was interesting.
Let me see here. Yeah, animatronics. That's what they had. They had used to this.
The scene where the
soldier snaps his neck back, and then his bones protrude. But yeah, that was a pretty intense scene.
Yeah, that scene is really interesting. That scene is the one where they bring back what's his name? Morton Chase back to life, right? Because he'd just been shot by the antagonist of the film, Captain Waffner.
Yes, our photographer is the one that had got shot.
Right. So he gets shot, bleeds out. He gets shot like pretty much through the center of the chest. So I'm pretty sure it was his heart. But at that point,
Yeah,
he
because
dies.
doesn't he? I believe he feels around his heart, or doesn't he like kind of put his finger into the wound or something like
Right.
that? Yeah.
So after Ed Boyce, he jabs the super serum into him, not knowing what exactly, but he knows that it has something to do with the living dead that he saw before. So
Yeah.
he jabs it into him. It brings him back to life. And when he wakes up, he's like putting his finger in the wound. He's like, "Oh, that's pretty bad. I don't feel it though."
That scene was pretty intense, but it was so silly for them not to keep an eye on Waffner's character, Waffner,
Right.
and he just kind of sneaks
just
out the
pieces out.
back. Yeah, it's like, come on.
It's not even the back. It's literally the only exit from that scene is the stairs down from the attic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like silly things like that. Kind of, I don't know. It's just a small thing, but still.
I think seeing it from the outside, like as an outside's perspective, you can go, "What are you doing?" Like watch him, but at the same time, they're watching their dead friend come back to life, so they're pretty distracted.
Yeah, I thought the same. I thought the exact same thing. Is like, yeah, if you see it through their shoes, they were obviously so distracted by this strange kind of reviving of one of their colleagues.
And it's ironic because that ends up being Private Boyce's first kill. Is the man that he just brought back to life. They try to shoot him a couple of times, or not even a couple of times. I think Wyatt Russell's character just lights him up with a Tommy gun, and when he doesn't go down, he knocks him out with the butt of his rifle, and then just keeps slamming his head with it until there's nothing left.
Yeah,
which seems like one of the two ways to kill them.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, because I would imagine just getting rid of their head or shooting them in the head would be the more convenient ways to do it.
Because Chloe actually shoots one in the head, and it doesn't die.
Does she?
Yes. So she hasn't it looks like an MP40. So it's like a German submachine gun, and one of them it looks like a failed experiment. It's more of a creature than a person. It's running after her. It's trying to attack her, and she lights it up. And a couple of the bullets go right through the chin, up through the top of the skull, and it seems to be dead. And so she kind of gets up and starts to walk away, and then he suddenly gets up and chases after her.
Okay. Yeah, and it's funny we get Wyatt Russell's character say something along the lines of like, "Oh, well, that's not pretty" or something, as you get a shot of the squished head.
Stupid one-liners.
Yeah. But speaking, I guess of Waffner, I'm gonna say Waffner. It says Waffner. I don't know.
I think it's Waffner.
Waffner. I would assume some type of German tang to it, but I'm kind of glad because I've seen the shot of the poster scene where his mouth is kind of halfway missing. But what's nice about that scene is I haven't revisited so much to I would fully recognize Waffner being that guy. So when we get the shot of him getting shot in the chin, you're like, okay, well that's gonna be the guy that turns into that creature.
Right. Corporal Ford shoots at him with a machine gun, trying to stop him from taking the child, and you see he visibly gets shot in the face, but you don't see the damage.
Yeah, he just turns away quickly. I will want to say is that the accuracy that a lot of these surgeons has is very bad. I mean, there's a scene actually towards the end, I believe it's either in the middle or towards the end when they recover the kid. They recover the kid in the middle, don't they?
It's near the end. They establish that there's a strange connection between Tibbet, the sarcastic Italian soldier, and the child. The child so badly wants to he imitates Tibbet a lot and tries to get him to play with him with a baseball. Yeah. And the kid grows on him as the scenes go on. So when the kid wanders back from the laboratories by himself, he's in the middle of a firefight between the soldiers.
This is the scene I want to talk about
in the U.S. Yeah.
Oh, God.
But he runs out. This whole time I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna get shot. He's gonna get the kid, but he's gonna get shot. And so at this point, I've given up on Tibbet. I think he's gonna die. He brings the child back and then just kind of gets like a minor wound in the shoulder.
Yeah, like this guy. I was watching this. I'm like, there's no way. There is no way this guy is so easily walking up to this kid, gets behind the car, walks back, and not a single time do these German soldiers really get a good shot at him. Like
Right.
the
Like the only
accuracy just
thing,
blew my mind.
yeah, it's worse than stormtroopers. That's pretty bad.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, like
but
it's bad.
the only thing that I can think of is like the Nazis aren't focused on the child as much because at that point, I think Chloe even comes out and like provides a little bit more suppressive fire. Um, but so Chloe and Rosenfeld, they're both firing back at the Nazis. They're killing a couple of them. Like it cuts to the Nazis getting shot, so they are dwindling in numbers. But at the same time, like you just have this giant target running out.
Yeah, like I mean, it was literally there was Germans on one side, the car in the middle that serves as cover, and then their squadron on the opposite end of that. And like literally in the middle, it's a wide open space with like not
Right.
much in the way for you to not get a good shot in. But yeah, that scene, I was like, oh come on.
Hmm. And I really thought like it would have been better if Tibbet had died. Like he's a pretty likable character. At first, you're irritated by him because he's so much shit to voice, but he kind of grows on you, and his sarcasm's pretty funny. But he gets shot, and you're like, oh shit, like that's the end of him. That's where Tibbet dies. But he's like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Let's just wrap it up. And it's like, what the. It would have been so much better if he like sacrificed his life for the child, but no, he just kind of got a flesh wound. It's fine.
Yeah, like I mean, I guess it would be typical of a movie to kind of kill off the entire squadron and then it's just the lead character that's left remaining. But I think in
Hmm.
this movie, it would have worked out if more of them passed and they got killed along the way.
Right.
Because most of them make it out, other than Rosenfield and Chase.
Well, most of them that actually land. Most
Oh, or even yeah,
the
actually, most of them do kind of die. I guess I mean because even
right.
Ford's character blows up, he gets
Yeah.
beat up. But
That
yeah,
ending is kind of ambiguous.
yeah.
Didn't you think?
What do you think about that? Quote unquote, we'll call that boss fight that we get with Wagner's character that has taken about 3 doses of this serum now.
Oh yeah. So
Um,
the that ending is interesting. It's predictable, but at the same time, it's I don't know. Basically, what happens is they get confronted by the newly. I wouldn't say he's resurrected because he never died, but the newly supercharged Captain Waffner, and he's fighting Corporal Ford. He actually does a recreation of the torture scene before when Ford is just beating the hell out of him for information. So he does this thing where he puts him up on a meat hook, which I guess essentially would kill him. It goes up through his back and into his chest cavity. But he's just wailing on him, and Boyce finally comes in and interrupts this interrogation, and he distracts him long enough for Ford to pull himself off of the meat hook and inject himself with the serum off camera, and then you just get like I guess it's like a I don't know, Batman versus Superman fist fight. Where it's just these two superpowered individuals
yeah,
just wailing on each other.
yeah, throwing around. They're getting thrown
Right.
around.
It was interesting because to me it was like Waffner gave himself 3 shots of the serum, but it doesn't really seem to give him any real advantage over Ford, who only gave himself 1. But the fight kind of ends when Boyce throws like a gas tank near Waffner's feet, and Ford shoots it. I think was it Ford that shot it, or was it Boyce? I don't.
It
It doesn't
was
really matter.
Boyce that shoots it because
Well,
Ford's the one that's distracting him.
right,
and,
right.
and once Boyce rolls the like the propane tank almost, or not a propane tank, it was a tank.
Yeah.
And then he's like laughing. He's like, "That's all you got," and then he shoots it.
Yeah, there's this kind of it's kind of funny. Like he's like laughing. He's like,
Like, he's like, "That's
and
it."
then it explodes,
Yeah, and
which
then
doesn't kill him.
yeah, he comes back crawling out of that kind of tunnel, and he kind of
Right.
crawls back up, all burnt up.
And in the middle of the fight, there was actually a scene where he starts pulling out like these drawers. It kind of looks like drawers in a morgue where they put dead bodies for preservation. He starts pulling them out, and when that scene happens where he's climbing out of the pit that he just fell into, you see 3 other super soldiers walk towards Boyce and Russell, which it was interesting because they seemed like perfectly normal super soldiers when you look at them, but they had already established that when they use it on dead soldiers, it doesn't work right. They end up being feral, psychotic messes. But I mean, you only see them for a second, so it's not clear. But Ford sacrifices himself. He's got explosives set up all around the room. Or no, he's got one set and locks Boyce out of the room, telling him to set the charges and run.
Mm-hmm.
So he sets off this bomb in his hand. It potentially kills everybody in the room. It you don't see them all die, but you see everything collapse. And then I don't know. I felt like that was pretty ambiguous, considering the director has said that he hadn't planned on there being a sequel. He wanted it to be pretty open and shut.
Yeah, I mean, I think a sequel might end up happening. I think a lot of people are wanting, at least from what I've seen on like Twitter and stuff, people want a second part to this, and I don't know if we really need a second one to this movie. I don't think we need a sequel. Just because if they want to feel like it's a mission that kind of knocked out 2 things at once, which was the radio jammers, and then they shut down the potential for the German soldiers to be this dominant force with the serum. Now, that would be assuming that this would be the only spot that they had the serum at.
Well, what's interesting is that they didn't make it just the Nazis can't have this. They also made it pretty clear that they didn't want the
right. Ford does say that.
Ford's like, we can't allow anybody to have this weapon. Like, it's too dangerous. It's too horrific. It's inhumane. So that's why he sacrifices himself to destroy the entire lab. There's a scene at the end of the movie where they're giving what's his name? Boyce is giving a sit rep to an unnamed commander, I guess, and he's like, "Are you sure you didn't see anything down there?" Getting suspicious reports about a lab. And he's like, "Yeah, nope, I didn't see anything. It was just the control." And he's like, "All right, cool. That's good for
like
me.
What?
We don't need to investigate." I thought that was interesting because it's like, okay, they successfully stopped them from investigating, but that also poses the threat that one of those super soldiers didn't die in the collapse of the lab. Because they're super, super resistant to physical damage.
Yeah. So if it was explosions just happening, I mean, some rubble, obviously, I don't think would have affected their survival.
Right. They have a lot of plastic explosives set up pretty much everywhere. No normal human, of course, would have survived the blast, but it's unclear whether or not one of these super soldiers might have.
Yeah, because the explosives were primarily throughout the radio jammer room, and then also the room where they had the test subjects in these bags.
Yeah, the bags are interesting.
Kind of remind me of like Matrix for some reason.
It's kind of what I got for yeah. It kind of, to me, seemed like a filtration system. They basically would set these humans in these bags, and they would run some of the whatever their experimental serum was through the bag into where these humans are, through their bodies, and then it would leak out of the bag into like these little collection things. They actually had Rosenfeld's character set up to become one of the people that goes in the bag before he's rescued. There's a story from the director that it says that the bags were practical effects, of course, and one of the first stunt guy that they got to go in the bag, when he was inside, as soon as he got out, he's like, "No, that you can set me on fire, you could shoot at me, you can make me jump off a building, but I am not getting back inside that bag."
It's probably got to be so claustrophobic or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering, if all it takes is just the serum being injected into the test subject, why would they have to be placed in these bags then? But it kind of serves like as an incubator almost. I guess if, like you said, it might be that they were kind of I don't know, either kind of sweating out the chemical, and then it kind of purifies it even more. Yeah,
It
kind
looked
of.
like it was hooked up to their kidneys from where he pulled the machine out of Rosen.
Oh, that is right. That is right. He has.
So
Yeah.
I think it was literally being filtered by human organs, like the kidney or the liver. I'm not sure,
I
but
thought.
it's not
What'd you
clear.
think when we first get that shot of having that kind of circular suction style thing attached to his body? I thought we were gonna get a shot of like an entire hole looking into like his stomach and stuff, but it ends up being like just a
Right.
fine needle, going
Right.
through.
It was like three, 5 or 6 needles, and then what looked like it would be like something that would like suck open like a
Seal it.
hole in
Yeah.
his. Yeah, but it ended up being less
I was like,
invasive,
oh
I
boy,
guess.
here we go.
Yeah, I was like, okay, so this character's dead, but
Yeah.
no, he fights it out. He's fine.
We also got that quick shot of that beheaded woman, and she's talking,
Mm,
but it's just her
yeah,
head. It was pretty creepy.
yeah. It was a way for them to kind of show how much damage these soldiers could go through.
Yeah,
It
so
was literally just her head and I think her spine, or maybe
I
not even her
believe
spine.
so. It was like a small portion of the spine, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty freaky.
Um, but yeah, I mean, this movie, I don't know. What do you think it deserves a sequel? Would you want a sequel? Do we need one?
I don't know. I mean, I'd watch a sequel. I'll say I'd watch one. I don't think it really needs one though. I think it's better off as like a one shot sort of. Oh well, nobody knows that this happened sort of thing in the war.
Mm-hmm. My
That part of the ending kind of bothered me though, because it was like they just went through all this shit and now they're about to go just get deployed to like another war.
Yeah, I mean, unless somehow I don't even know. I mean, if you were to see this as like a classified, style mission where it's like,
Right.
classified, we won't ever talk about this, but like you said at the end of the story, one of the commanders literally asked him, "We've been getting reports of some type of experiments. Have you heard of this?" He's like, "No." Like, all right. And it's like, I
Just
guess
thought I'd ask.
I guess we're just gonna move on and continue fighting the war, which I guess would make sense, but I don't know. This, like you said, it kind of ambiguous and where
Right.
they're gonna decide to go with it. I feel like it would be a stretch if they really want to make it into sequel. Like, I don't know. The second one starts off as one of the experiments somehow gets away, but it being during the time of war, I would imagine he just gets killed off.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Unless,
mean, I think it would be in somehow the American if Corporal Ford somehow survived the explosion, and it kind of hinted that he was going crazy as he kind of talked to Boyce. You could see his face sort of convulse and get bloodshot. It'd be interesting to see like if he had gone feral and just started killing like soldiers on both sides. It doesn't give any indication that they can infect anybody, which is why I wouldn't say it's a zombie film. It seems like the only way to become one of these super soldiers is to take a serum.
yeah.
So
All I
even if
could
one of them survive, it's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, all I could really think of is that this isn't the only spots that has the serum. I mean, maybe there's another doctor somewhere else in Germany because this is in
Uh,
France. So,
well, they made it. They actually made a point of saying that it was the location of the church and something to do with the river. I can't remember what river they said it was, but it had mystical properties or something like that. So the location was important. I don't think that they had other labs where they were able to pull off this sort of thing because they didn't have this specific river water or something like that.
I wonder if they maybe shipped out a set somewhere else. I mean, because these
That's
soldiers
true.
are throughout Europe. So if they wanted to, I mean, I guess if you bring up the point that one of the doctors said the serum isn't complete, where it's not done yet. So maybe they haven't shipped it out yet. I don't know. What's gonna be interesting where they kind of decide to take
Right, right.
these movies if they decide to do any sequels to them. But I mean, when we looked at the box office, I mean it's at 24 million, entirely. Usually something like this, domestically it's at 13, worldwide it's at 24. it definitely did well with critics, and I think a lot of the people that watched it enjoyed this movie for the most part. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, other than who was the major distributor, other than Bad Robot, or was it just Bad Robot that distributed this? Because they produced it.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know if it was Universal. Let me see. Let me see the Wikipedia page, because obviously studios at the end of the day they want to make a larger amount of money. It was Paramount Pictures. Okay, so I don't know. It's gonna be interesting what ends up being done with this movie.
I mean, there are worse movies that have gotten. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you wanna, I mean, someone could definitely argue if you look at the Cloverfield movies, those are getting sequels, but that's something like J.J. Abrams is kind of set on doing. I just looked at
Right.
the I've seen the Overload poster, but I've never really looked at it, and it's actually a plane in the top left corner, and then there's some blood droplets on the poster, and I thought it was just blood, but it's actually soldiers with parachutes.
Oh, I'm not seeing that at all. Am I looking at the right poster? Is it
Um,
the poster of like the just the guys
no,
with
no,
Overlord over it?
no. It's the let me see. It's a white
Oh,
one.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I never actually looked at it, but it's actually blood droplets, and then they kind of drew in some people on parachutes. I guess that's pretty cool. I've never looked at the poster really. I just kind of glanced at it, but that's cool. That's cool.
I can't really think of
Ooh,
any other
this is a
scenes
pretty.
in this movie that
This
are
is
like super significant. I mean, the more I think about it, the more I think that it's harder for them. The more I think about it, the more I think it's harder for them to do a sequel, just because they were pretty good at tying up loose ends. They killed the aunt, which would have been the only other person that might have been infected. All right, infected is the wrong word. I guess tested on. Um, I mean, the entire facility is destroyed. I don't know. They didn't really make it clear that they could infect other people, or even if they ate them. I mean, there's a Nazi troop that's a Nazi soldier that's dragged into a room with one of them, but it doesn't show what's done. It just sees you just assume he's dead.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you would have to also assume is maybe are in order for them to keep living, do they need to eat? I kind of
Right. It's not clear.
because it's almost like a feeding cell almost, like these creatures or something. They're kind of feeding on people. I don't know.
I
It's kind
thought they
of
were just observing failed experiments. That's what it looked like to me. The ones that ended up going crazy, they would put them in a room, and there were these little peepholes that you could look through in the wall.
Mhm. Yeah. Those peoples were interesting. I think the way they made it seem in the trailer is that was gonna be like a big kind of part of the movie in a way, but it ends up being some holding cells
Right.
that
There,
they're
there, there are a lot of things in this movie that I thought were going to be bigger than they really were. Like when he's on the plane, he's got like this chain that's supposed to be like his good luck charm or something, and then it's never mentioned ever again. I mean, it may have just been to show that his character is more, I don't know, squeamish or not as willing as the other characters, but it seemed like, I don't know, maybe he was going to use the chain for something special later, and he never did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was just the charm of the trailer, because the trailer was pretty cool. But again, once I look back at it, they do show a lot of stuff. Like it literally
Right.
goes beginning, middle, and even end. Because literally the beginning of the trailer is them in the plane, and it holds that shot for about 30 seconds of 20 seconds of the trailer, and then we get them shooting at people, and then we get a shot of that of Wafner with half of his mouth missing.
Right. Yeah, the
Um,
trailer makes it seem a lot more like it would be a Call of Duty.
Oh yeah, that music choice. Yeah, it looks like a Call of Duty zombie trailer.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be four soldiers gunning down a bunch of zombies, but it ended up not being that at all. Which I guess is what frustrates me so much about people's comparison to Wolfenstein. Because when you play Wolfenstein, you're one dude running around a compound shooting like hundreds of Nazis.
Hmm.
It's not at all this movie.
I will say, I wish we would have gotten more soldiers shooting at actual beings rather than just soldiers. So obviously not shooting at like at an entire horde of or creatures or experiments, but more interaction between the squadron that we got
Right.
and
It would
these
have been
creatures.
interesting. Yeah, it would have been interesting to see like one of them escape, and they're all trying to like gun it down, and they don't. Maybe the four people don't exactly. The Americans don't see the creature, but they see that they're shooting at something, and it's not going down.
Yeah, I mean, because
That would have been interesting.
just like any movie, it's nice to see your protagonist struggle some way. And the only time we really see these characters struggle is when they're fighting Wafner's character towards the end.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I think that would have been. I think it would have added a bit more. It would have obviously added more action to the movie, but it would have been something nice to see happen in this movie. But yeah, I think that might do it for this movie. Like I said, I mean, will a sequel happen? It's gonna be tough. I think it's gonna be tough. I don't know if Paramount's gonna want to see more money coming into the box office for it to get a sequel, or if J.J. Abrams maybe feels like this is something he can potentially see getting a sequel. It's gonna be interesting what ends up happening, but it's definitely a fun watch, and it's definitely one of the, if we do say it's a zombie movie at the end of the day, or what people are calling it as, it's one of the better zombie flicks that we've gotten throughout the years, I think.
Right. I would agree with that.
But yeah, I mean, I think that will do it. Where can they find you on the socials if you'd like to mention that?
I guess Twitter would be Ctreon, CTREON 1457.
You can find me on Twitter primarily at Video Josue. That's Video Josue. Wherever you're listening to us, you can also listen to us on other platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, and I do plan on adding this podcast to other third-party podcast hosting apps that I know a lot of people are using. So I'll be getting on that. But other than that, thank you for listening.